Hi everyone, welcome back to Vocal Arts. I'm Peter Barber, professional singer and music producer, and of course host of this show. I just had the great pleasure of speaking with Teagan Earley, who many of you may know as the singer for Athena on Epic the Musical, but she has done a great many other things. Incredibly talented singer, actress, artist, producer, all of it. Before we get into the conversation, here are a few clips of some of my favorite work that Teagan has done over the years. Enjoy.
Follow me and we'll make a greater tomorrow. Then they'll see I know this way. You'll know what your place is this way. You can't cross the line this way. When all is over, you'll keep yours and I'll keep mine. Have you forgotten the lessons I taught you? He's still a threat until he's dead. Finish it. He's a warrior of the mind.
Hi everyone, I'm here with Teagan Earley, and I'm actually going to pass the baton over to her and allow her to introduce herself and tell you guys who she is and what she's up to these days.
Amazing. Hi, everyone. My name is Teagan Earley. I'm a singer, actor, recording artist, and producer who's based in Chicago. I am also voicing Athena in Epic, which is where most people tend to know me from. But I just released a bunch of solo music, and I'm still working on other stuff around Chicago, and just generally very happy to be a storyteller right now.
Fantastic. Thank you. A great
Yeah.
introduction, short and sweet. It's so
Oh,
funny.
thank you.
Sometimes I'll open up the door and
Hmm.
because it's kind of a weird artificial thing to do, like, hi, this is who I am as a person. Sometimes people will just go and they'll start at the
Yes.
they'll start at the very beginning and just go through their whole career, and I'm like, okay, and that's the podcast.
Like I knew when I wanted to do this when I came out of the womb or whatever. Yeah, no, absolutely. I had to get very good very quickly, especially when I'm like pitching shows and things like that, at just getting straight to the point and still letting people know who I was. So
It's the it's the
I
it's the
came prepared.
it's the elevator pitch.
Yes, exactly.
So, like you said, I also became familiar with your work and your singing as Athena. So I would love to hear how all that came together. I'm very new to
Yeah.
the Epic community. I just started doing these analysis videos for it.
Oh,
I still haven't seen
love it.
everything that's been released so far. I think I've done three of the sagas,
Yeah.
but I'm really interested in the origins, especially from someone who was a part of that, from the beginning, really.
Yeah, no, it's been such an incredible journey. Epic is first of all, welcome to the community. It's a very fun community to be part of. Like everyone in it is so kind and generous and smart. So
Mm.
that's been a blast and a half to get to know people who are interested in Greek mythology and interested in this show. Um, so I went to undergrad with Jay, and we collaborated a ton on a bunch of things while we were there, musicals, and he was writing the whole time we was there. We were in this development group that performed for donors to the university together. So we saw a lot of each other for a very long time, and we got very close. It was a blast and a half. Um, and he started writing, he had written another show at the university that got put up while we were there when we were juniors. And then his senior year, he was trying to start on something new. Um, and I remember what he said to me was he wanted it to be epic. Like he's like, I don't really know what I want the content of this to be yet, but I know that I want it to be something kind of unlike anything that else or anything else that ever has been staged before. So I was like, all right, well, because I always recorded demos with him when he was writing something new because he usually needed a female voice of some sort. And so he would always come to me first, and we would just sit in the basement of our recording or either in his dorm room or in the basement of our performing arts center and record those. And it was just kind of like a fun, light thing that we did to help each other out. And So I was like, all right, well, you know where to find me when you come up with the idea. Um, he actually said to me at one point, he's like, I want you to have like an actual character in this one that you sing like pretty much all the time. And like, I want it to match your voice. Like, it's got to be like a goddess or something. And I was like, okay, great. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Um, but it was very sweet of him. Um, and so then he, I don't remember exactly when or why it hit him, but it was right before the pandemic really like flared up that all of a sudden he got this idea and he was like, oh my gosh, this is what I need to write about this. I need to write about the Odyssey and like the journey of Odysseus and all of the gods and everything. Um, so then he started writing and we started recording, and I think I got like 3 or 4 songs maybe of most of which are scrapped now because the show has seen a complete revamp since it was first started. Um, and then boom, pandemic, and we just never came back to school. At this point, we were both seniors at the University of Notre Dame, and we left for spring break, and we never came back until our graduation, which was 2 years later. I think they did like an in-person graduation. We had Zoom graduation before then, like most people in 2020 did, but um, and so he all of a sudden was at at home and had all the time in the world. And so he was writing constantly. And I remember I was dashing around like a mad person during the pandemic because, as you also know, like there were no performing opportunities for a minute there. So everything that I had momentum for, everything that I was kind of building up to was just suddenly gone. And so, like many artists, we persisted and we adjusted. I became a nanny, and that was a really beautiful job to have during the pandemic because it was a family that I had grown up with who then had kids of their own. And um, they trusted me and I became part of their bubble. And then I was just at their house every day and I helped take care of the kids. Uh, so that was always funny because he'd be writing and then he'd call me. Like the kids came to know Jay as like the boy who is trapped in my phone because like he would just call. They were 3 and 1.5, and so the only context they had for him is that he would like call me and pop up on FaceTime and then be screaming at me like, "Can you wait? I just wrote this. I think it's really good. Like, can you sing this?" And I'm like, "Okay, I have like the 2 children." But and so they were just like, "You should really let him out." I remember the little girl said to me one day, she's like, "You should let him out. He seems like really." I'm like, "Oh no, no, no. He's happy. He's happy to be in there. He's
Yeah.
he's working really hard right now." Um, and then I actually remember the day. I don't remember like exactly when it was, but I remember exactly what the conversation went like when he was like, I'm starting to have trouble holding myself accountable for staying on track with this writing. So I think I'm going to start posting on like TikTok or something as kind of a video diary for myself. Because if I need to post something every day and kind of recount what I've been working on, then it means I have to post something every day. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Like, I think that will really help you. It's good to find ways to keep yourself accountable, not thinking anything of it. And then all of a sudden, he had maybe been posting already for about a week with not much avail. And then I think he did like a lyric challenge with another creator that people really liked and responded to. It was one of those trend things. And all of a sudden everyone found his page, and it was like he went from 0 to 5,000 overnight or something like that,
Mhm.
and then 5,000 to 10,000, and then 10,000 to 50. Like it blew up out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden it's the viral sensation that we all know it to be, um, which was incredible. And then what was even more incredible about that is then he was like, "Okay, well, I want to put your face out there. I want to touch you because you've been working on this with me since the beginning. Um, so can you jump on and make a video for this demo that you made?" And I was like, "Sure." And so I made a video with him, I believe. And then all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, well, I need to be able to tag you on TikTok," because I didn't have a TikTok at the time. And so I was like, okay, whatever. I made like a burner page basically so that I could see the video and, support it and stuff, but I had no intention of posting anything of my own. Um, and then I got like I think something crazy like 2,000 followers overnight for a blank page, for a page that did not have any content on it yet. And so I was
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, this is a thing. Like this is a thing that's happening now. And holy moly has it happened ever since then. And I feel so unbelievably lucky to be part of it. Um, it it just it blew up in a way that none of us expected, but like the piece absolutely deserves. Like Jay is so the what I haven't I've been rambling on, but what I haven't said is he is so brilliant. He's so talented and he's so kind, like and just always wants to lift the people who have been with him up with him, which is such an incredible thing in an artist. So I mean, the piece deserves this.
Yeah,
He deserves
yeah,
this. Um,
amazing.
and it's been so great, like all the other people that we've met along the way and who have auditioned and become part of the piece. And like, it's awesome. Yeah. So that's kind of the
Yeah.
not so Spark Notes version of the story of Epic as told by Teagan Earley.
But no, it's really cool. I didn't realize that you two had been colleagues so long before then. Kind of what I had heard, because I'm trying to avoid too many details because
Yeah.
there's a whole spoilers thing out there, and I'm trying to do like this the
Yes.
first time viewing and musical analysis. So people are like I have a number of friends who have already seen the whole thing. They're obsessed with it. They're like, "Do you want me
Yep.
to tell you any background?" I'm like, "No, no, no, no. Just
Yep.
let
Let me
me
experience
let
it
me
for the
go in
first time.
blind." So, so my interpretation was kind of like I knew that it started blowing up on TikTok. I
Yeah.
mean, I assumed that he had just found other TikTok creators that were big singers or whatever and kind of brought them on. And maybe that's what happened with part of it. But what happened
Yeah.
with you was you were his colleague for years and years and years, and you had
Yeah.
already done a bunch of projects together. So it's really cool to hear that from and just hear from like ground zero essentially.
Yeah. Oh no, it was very ground zero because for a while I was like, oh my God. Because like, for a while I was singing all of the female identifying characters in the show. So I got the ones that became most popular on TikTok were Athena, of course, and then Cersei. I was doing Cersei for a while. But I also, he would literally call me while I'm like making a peanut butter sandwich, and he'd be like, "Hey, I'm trying to get," because he was working with a producer at the time as well. He's like, "I'm trying to get the draft of this new song in for the producer, and I really like, is there any way you could do hair or not Hera, excuse me, not because I call her Shara because I used a Cher impersonation to do her, but he's like, is there any way you could do Hera? I'm like, yeah, sure, like I'll throw something on tape when I get home. He's like, I really need it by this afternoon. And so I'm like, what do you want? Like, so then during like nap time or whatever, I would like go into my car and record a little thing. And then he'd send back notes and be like, yeah, this is really great stuff. Love your interpretation. Need it to sound different than Athena. And I'm like, bro, I'm running out of voices. Like, oh my God. And so I was so excited to welcome all the other incredible women to the team because not only are they so talented and like Talia's interpretation of Cersei just gives me chills every time. She has one of those voices, where you're
Yeah,
just like that,
I
the
have not
vibrancy and oh,
I
then I
haven't
won't. Okay,
I haven't gotten there yet.
no spoilers. Okay, great. You're gonna love it
Yeah.
because, especially as someone who is experienced in classical singing, like it's because
Mm.
I am as well. Like it was so she's just amazing. Um, so anyway, that's all for another story. But yeah, no,
Uh,
he and I it started when it was just like an idea, barely even an idea at undergrad, and then it's become the incredible epic
Epic.
journey.
It truly is epic. I know I find
Yeah,
myself saying that all the
yeah,
time, and I'm like, "Ugh." But it is. I mean, it's just like, pretty much
yep,
every song I've heard so far. I mean, it all has some kind of epic foundation, epic vibe.
yeah,
With the sampling. I love the combination of like live and electronic instruments. That's a huge thing I'm
right.
obsessed with. Like orchestra plus electronics, I think is the coolest thing in the world. It's
Oh my
it's
God, yeah.
becoming more popular, but it's still a very new uh kind of
Yeah.
compositional style. And so I
Hmm.
absolutely love it. You'll get like a dubstep wobble with like some heavy cellos and like a big powerful voice. And you're like, this is an amazing like blending of the old and the new world, you know?
Yep. Oh, no, I'm so glad you said that because that's a lot of what I've been exploring in my own music too. Is I just like, because I'm such a classical music nerd. I kind of mentioned this when we chatted earlier, but I started in classical music. I started training to become an opera singer, and then I kind of found theater through that and ended up going in that direction instead. But opera and classical music just has such a massive place in my heart. So when I started making like pop music, I got in trouble for the first like couple demos that I made because my manager would come to me and be like, "Hey, love this, so good, so beautiful. Um, why is there a full orchestra in the background?" Like just asking. I'm like, Just trust the process. People are gonna love it. I promise."
I that's amazing. I had no idea you were also doing that. I literally just put
Yeah.
out a full album of like basically they're like these big epic covers essentially.
Yeah.
There's one original on there,
Oh,
but it's all like heavy
love it.
electronics from my background as an electronic music producer and like full orchestra in some of the songs and then like bass vocal leads with like a bunch of vocal layering. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's chat, Peter. Let's
Yeah,
chat.
yeah. I think there's a
Offline, not during this.
there's some synchronicity happening.
I'm seeing
Um,
it. Oh yeah.
that's so
And I'm
cool.
connecting.
Have you I wasn't expecting to go this direction, but have you seen the show
Yeah. Apologies.
Arcane perchance?
No, I have not, but I've heard.
Okay.
Like you're probably the 10th person who has told me that I absolutely need to watch it. So it
Absolute
is
10 out of 10
mm-hmm.
masterpiece.
Great.
Season 2 is coming out in November.
Amazing.
I have chatted with the guy that wrote a lot of the music for it for the show.
Oh, love it.
His guy named Alex Seaver, Mako. He like produces huge epic like world anthems for League of Legends and stuff like that.
Oh, love
Amazing.
it.
And that show was the first time I had heard someone just completely nail the combination of orchestra and electronics and
Okay.
like fully inspired me to like write the album that I just did. I mean, it's the
I love
best.
it.
It's the
Oh my
best.
God.
And the
Okay.
other thing is, you know, with their budget they have for the show,
Yeah.
they're playing with like the, you know, the German Philharmonic with it, you know,
Work.
all the best synths, all the best mixing engineers. So you just go into this world and you're like, this is the coolest music ever made.
I'm floored right now. That's oh okay, okay. See, I didn't no one's ever taken the soundtrack route with me, so I am absolutely gonna add that because I listen to music all the time, like while I'm walking my dog or whatever. Um, so I will add the soundtrack and then I bet that will take me to the other world and make me want to watch the show even more and like bump it to the top
100%.
of my list. So thank
100%.
you.
One other quick pitch for it because I'm obsessed
Yeah,
with the show. So
amazing.
so a the score is incredible, right? The
Yeah.
score for like the whole score. But what they did with this song that they haven't done previously is they literally wrote these dark cinematic pop songs for picture. So it's not like they found songs that fit the show.
Yes.
They wrote a like dark pop album for the season. And
My
so these
favorite
songs come
thing.
on, you're like, and so it's you know like a well-written score is just perfect for whatever you're seeing.
Yeah. Hmm.
They like did that with songs.
Yes. Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
Incredible.
Everything is theater, everything is opera, and you can't really change my mind about that. That's awesome.
So what actually made you pivot from opera? As so, I mean, because I'm still I've at least got one foot still in that door.
Amazing. I honestly, I think I'm someone who believes that art is art and have your foot in as many doors as you want to because it's all just storytelling and it's all related in some way and
Mhm.
all will help each other in some way. But opera does take a lot of training and a lot of time and a lot of focus. And
Yes,
so
yes.
really what happened is I started singing when I was really bitty bitty in church and started taking voice lessons and things like that. And when you're taking voice lessons, especially that young, so much of it is already kind of in the vein of classical music or classical theory and things like that. And so it was just a lot of it was learning theory and learning solfege and learning, you know, how to read music and all of that. And then also just training the voice in that vein. So I was kind of just that was just kind of where I ended up for a long time was just like, oh, you know, we're doing 가로 bien or whatever, like
Yeah.
as something,
Right.
that's something that you do when you're 12 and taking voice
Yes.
lessons. Um, and from there, I mean, I studied for years and years, and it was really only when I got to high school that I remember I was the Mother Abbess in Sound of Music, and then a summer camp director came to the show and said like, "Hey, we've never seen you at our camp. We would really love to have you. It's a theater camp." And I was like, "Great." So I went and I did that. And the first summer I did it, it was Shrek the musical. So it was kind of, I would say that one's a little bit more half and half. Like you have her beautiful soprano-y moments, but then also she's Sutton Foster. Like Fiona was originated by Sutton Foster, so like a lot of belting there too. And I wasn't a belter at the time, or at least I'd never studied belting in any capacity. But as soon as I did, like, I know it's today, tried belting it, I was like, oh, I love this. I love it. Um, and so then I started kind of researching those techniques by myself, but I didn't have the courage to like bring it to my voice teacher and be like, can I try this? Because I wasn't sure what they would say. I just didn't, I'd never thought about it before. Um, and then the next summer we did Rent, and I was playing Maureen. Um, and there's not a soprano to be found in that show, not a one. So it was a very hard pivot, and so that at that point it was such high belting, and it was such kind of like you had to really really know what you were doing to play that part. I was like, okay, well, now I need to talk to the professionals about this. Unfortunately, I had a teacher in high school, because I was in high school, that she was like, yeah, sure, like explore other styles. We can work on that for a while. We can make sure you're doing it healthily. Like she was amazing. And then we can also, just keep and what I found is like, because my classical training was so strong, the transition to belting healthily was really easy, because like when you have that technique, and especially when you've strengthened your musculature in that way,
Mhm.
you're in great shape. You can kind of make that
Yeah.
transition. Where it becomes difficult is like you're always going to lose some soprano range when you're really leaning into like there's just give and take. And at the time
Mhm.
I was so convinced. I was like, I'll just figure it out and I will be able to have it all. Um, and so then that's when I was looking at colleges, that's exactly one of the things I was thinking about. Is I was like, I kind of want to do a dual degree in music and theater and be able to study both styles. And I got to Notre Dame, which their classical music program is renowned. And at the time, the musical theater minor didn't even exist. It kind of came to be while I was there. They had an awesome theater major, but like no musical theater branch of it yet.
Mhm.
Um, and so um, I went into my voice lessons at Notre Dame, and I had an incredible teacher there, who was mostly incredible because he was so brutally honest with me all the time, and as they tend to be. And
You need that. You really need
you
that.
you really need that. And so I did the whole thing. I would do studio class. I would do, like I took theory. I did all of this stuff, which I loved. I loved all of it. But as I'm sure like when you're studying music, I mean, a lot of times you have to take upwards of 24 to 25 credit hours a semester, and usually like 4 or 5 of those are you just expected to show up and do it, but you're not actually
It's
getting
like a
like
zero
credit for
credit or
it.
a one or
Yeah,
a one or one or a one credit. Yeah. It's
yes.
criminal. It's criminal, really.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah. I didn't even, I was like, oh, that's interesting that can happen.
Yeah.
How has
Okay.
no one
So
caught on to
8
that yet?
a.m. like 8 a.m. through rehearsals at the end of the day, and
Oh yeah.
that's life as a freshman in music.
Oh yeah. And at the time I was trying to, because since the musical theater and minor didn't exist, I was trying to form my own major. And so I literally, like my freshman year, especially, I did not have a minute to
Mm,
breathe, a minute to sleep, a minute to, and I was like, this is just too much. Like I can't. So I talked with my amazing teacher, and I talked with the music department. I said, is there any way that I can drop the major? Because at the time, a lot of the classes were major only. So like you could only be in them and get that education if you were a major. And I said, like, I'm trying to form this other major, go the musical theater route. Yeah, so it really was just kind of like on a technical, like I just did more theater. And even though I loved classical music, I constantly found myself being drawn back and just kind of ending up in shows and stuff. And so like there wasn't really any aha moment where I realized, because I just knew I loved storytelling, and I knew that
Mhm.
like I loved performing and connecting with people over music. Um, and so it really just ended up being that in my balance of how I was kind of figuring out things for myself, it ended up being that I dropped the music major and then transitioned more to theater, but then was still taking theory and still taking music history and still taking like being in the operas and going to studio class and taking my voice lessons and stuff, of course. So, um, but I will, the reason that I even knew that I wanted to perform for a living way back when is because I read Phantom of the Opera, the original 1911 Gaston Leroux novel when I was like 11 or 12 years old. And then I saw the show the next time it toured through because I loved it so much. It was the first all-nighter I ever pulled was reading that book. Um, and I saw those people on stage, and that's such a fun show because like there are elements of classical music in there, of course, because it's based on
Hmm.
an opera, but really it is a like it's a rock show, you know, like
Yeah, yeah,
um
totally,
and so that
totally.
was the first time I saw kind of all of the I think that like looking back, I was drawn to the multimedia aspect of that and the multi like style aspect of that.
Yeah,
And I was like, this is amazing. I want to do that forever. Um and then it just took me a while to kind of settle on like, oh, I don't want to be tied to just one thing or one style. Like similarly to how it sounds like you're kind of keeping your feet in
yeah,
multiple doors, like
yeah,
with the way that the education was structured, at least at my school, it was, and I've heard several others as well, is you really can't do anything else if you want to like absolutely go that route. And so I was like, you know what? That doesn't sound like my bag. I want to have this background because it makes me a better artist. I want to have this knowledge of the history because it makes me a better artist, but I don't that's not I don't want to only be pigeonholed into just doing that for the rest of my life. And that's when I kind of knew it was time to
yeah.
explore other avenues.
That's a that's a thing about the opera world where not only is the art form itself pretty demanding,
Yeah.
comparatively to almost at least anything else I've done musically,
Yeah.
just as far as developing the technique and language on top of everything, and just the kind of vocal maturity you need to sing in a big space with an orchestra without a
Yeah.
microphone,
Oh yeah.
which is
Oh my God.
like it's a and that just takes time. Like that just takes time to
It
to
does.
develop that. But there's in addition to that, there's this other thing in the opera world where you can definitely get a little bit of a cold shoulder if you're not just like if you're not
Yep.
living and dying for that art form. And
Yeah.
that I found is specific to opera because every other genre I
Yes.
work in, they go, wow, it's so cool you're doing the YouTube thing and you've got the bass gang and you're
Mm-hmm.
still an opera singer. Amazing. Whereas the opera world's like, what are you doing over there? Like,
They're like,
what do
wow,
you,
that's a lot of time you're
oh,
not spending on opera. It's
wow,
so interesting.
look at all those followers you got for singing low notes. Like, you know,
Literally. Yeah,
so
no, that's yeah.
there's a bit of that going on. So I'm like always trying to figure out how to balance that, you know. I feel that my philosophy now is that as long as I am showing up to the opera gigs completely ready and just like smash it and be a good colleague, there shouldn't be an issue. Theoretically,
Mm-hmm.
there should be no issue. So I would say it's gone that way. It's gone that way so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
I think that's a good way to be. And I think it sounds like you're balancing it beautifully and doing a wonderful. I mean, I was looking through your page and all of your content and stuff like that, and I was just like, oh my gosh, what a incredible multi hyphenate you are. And
Thank you.
so immensely
Thanks
talented.
for checking it
Seriously.
out. I really appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, of course. I was so excited. I'm always so excited when I see someone who has any classical background like follow me or whatever, because that's a world I love so much, but obviously I don't have as much access to anymore. And so I was like,
Mm.
friend, we
Amazing.
can talk about like Faust or something. It'll be great.
Yeah, yeah. I want to actually jump back a little bit to Athena. So
Yeah.
when Jay is writing this, is was there a
Mhm.
lot of back and forth and like really figuring out exactly what your voice can really nail. And writing like you're like, no, like me on like a C5 and full chest voice is absolute money. Like you got to write one. Like you got to write a big sustained belt there. Was there a lot of
Yeah,
collaboration on the role?
there was so much collaboration, and there still is so much collaboration, which is so fun. Oddly enough, so I had the fortune of, because I had worked with him so many times, he actually told me at the beginning, he's like, I feel like I know your voice pretty well. He's like, he was so excited because he's like, I feel like I finally know how to write for a voice. And it's because you and I have worked together so much. I know your voice so well. And to his credit, like he was right. Like he would send me something and I'd be like, oh yeah, no, that feels really good. Or so, sometimes he would check in and be like, is that too low? I'm like, no, I love it down there. Like, please, like write me more down there. So yeah, there was a ton of collaboration in terms of like, he knew he had a pretty good basis to start with. But then he was constantly checking back in with me, like I said, like calling me at work and things like that and being like, can you sing this really quick? Um, and then in addition to like he always wants to hear his actors' thoughts on interpretations of the character and like what they think is happening in that person's head at that time and things like that. When we were down in Mexico recording the first couple sagas, um, it was just constant. I mean, it wasn't so much like, hey, here's a vocal note. He would do that occasionally, but a lot of times he would just come in the booth and be like, hey, like, what do you think is happening in this moment? And like, here's what my take was when I was writing it, but I'm really interested to hear what you have to say as well. Um, so it's constant collaboration, but like as he is writing the show and developing the story, and kind of writing around the people that he has, which is something he is very good at that, which is incredible to see. Um,
Definitely.
and but then it's like little things as well. Like I can't really share too much, but he calls me all the time now when he gets like certain offers or certain things come across his desk or whatever, and I know he's doing the same for the rest of the actors. Like every once in a while he'll get like a partnership or something and he'll be like, hey, I really want to incorporate the characters into this, what do you think about this? Or like, if I send you this thing, can you make a video talking about it as Athena or something like that? And so like he's just very, he cares a lot about the story and he cares a lot about the fans and he cares a lot about how much the fans love the story and love the characters. And so we are very involved in the process um of involving them, which is really cool.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
really great to hear that he's like an
Yeah.
all boats will rise kind of guy. Um,
1000%. Yeah. Like that is, I think that's like the
super
core of
cool.
Jay as an artist in general.
That's wonderful. I've been thinking,
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot more like little collaborations lately, and I've been
Yeah.
thinking about that. Like if all these creators are just always working together and always putting out all the like cross posting and just and featuring each other, and everyone grows together. Like
I could not
everyone,
agree more. Yeah.
it's the
I'm
best.
I love collaboration in general, but especially in an industry, I gotta be careful how I say this. In an industry where much of the structuring that it does have, and it's not a very structured industry to begin with, is built upon pitting people against each other. Let
Mm,
me say it that way.
mhm.
Um, it's really beautiful to see this trend in the last couple of years of, instead, we're going to find a group of people that we like working with and come together and make something really beautiful. Or you meet someone on one job and you say, like, we want to work together. And then you circle back around a couple of years later and make something beautiful happen. Or even just
Hmm.
like seeing people who are doing two completely different things, like promote and engage with each other. Like that's part of what I love so much about what social media has done for the art forms. Um, is it really allows you to connect with people that you otherwise never would have crossed paths with, because so many of those industries and like art form, um, areas of expertise are so like just
Yeah,
separate at the time. Um,
yeah,
yeah, so I agree with you. I think that's the best.
yeah. It's also kind of amazing that, I mean, at least I mean, I feel this way about everything I've done in the last few years is like without the pandemic, I would still definitely just be singing opera. I mean, that was I didn't have
Yes.
anything else. I was in my master's at USC.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, rock on. My sister's
Pandemic
there for her master's right now.
really? Sword
Yeah.
School of Music?
No, she's at Stark. She's in Stark. She's a producer.
Okay. Okay. Very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. Go Trojans, fight on.
Go Trojans.
But
But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
yeah, no, it's fine. Pandemic hits, right? I think it hit the week after my master's recital, so I like kind of checked off the final box, but had to
Okay.
graduate, had to keep teaching. I was a TA while I was there, and
Yeah.
but I was full on opera. I was going still went there to the Academy of Vocal Arts in Philadelphia. Um, am still doing it now, but without the
Yeah.
pandemic, it would have no doubt just been opera because there's time now to balance them, but there wouldn't have been time to
hmm
build the thing while the
Oh
opera
God,
path
yeah.
is still going full on, which is just a fascinating thing to think about. Just like in a different world where COVID doesn't happen, it's only opera, and I haven't met the bass gang, and I haven't done any of these collaborations,
Yeah.
and I don't have a YouTube channel or a podcast or anything like that.
hmm
Pretty
No,
wild.
it is wild, and I say it to people all the time, like what caused the pandemic is awful. And like we should not forget that even now as things have opened back up and have kind of gone back to like normalcy. Um, but it was really interesting to see as an artist in the pandemic who kind of let that stop them in their tracks and stop their momentum because they didn't know how to like have a growth mindset and adjust and find other things that fed their art. And I noticed a lot of those people also were people who may have been in the art form because they like people clapping for them rather than because like they're actually particularly interested in what it is they're making or saying.
Sure.
But the people who truly like love the art of storytelling, whatever medium that finds them in, all adjusted in incredible ways during the pandemic. I mean, Zoom theater, even like that wasn't a thing. And yet I saw some really good, really cool Zoom theater shows over the course of the pandemic. Like people really found a way to push the boundaries of like what a certain art form even means or like what the definition of that is. And then even once things started to open back up, I agree, like the pandemic gave so many people time to build other things that they wouldn't have otherwise had time for or even known was an avenue for them, I think. Um, I feel the same way. Like, I think there's a lot of things that I wouldn't have necessarily done if I had just done what I planned and like moved straight to Chicago after a graduation and started auditioning and like been solely in the theater world even.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, yeah, it's weird. It's crazy to think about. It's
It's
super,
crazy.
super cool though. And I'm glad that you had this time and I'm glad that you built this incredible like empire
Definitely.
of media and content.
So true. I mean, the podcast is like one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
It's really fun to chat with people, meet people, and it's
Yeah.
cool. I mean, like, and you like doing a short like musical collaboration is one thing, and it's great. But the podcast
hmm
where you really get to talk to someone
I
for like
know.
an hour or two, it's like you develop a friendship very quickly, even
Yeah. Oh,
virtually.
absolutely.
Just having a full fleshed out conversation.
I know. I agree. It was when you initially messaged me and you're like, "Hey, I would love to chat." I love when people ask me to chat. I love chatting. I love just like getting to know someone and really getting to the core of who they are and where they've come from. I love hearing people's stories. Like again, like
Yeah,
that's why I got into all this in the first place is because I just love
yeah.
stories and I love getting to know people. And so like yeah, that was good. You did instead of just being like, "Hello, I'd like to invite you to do this,"
I'd
and
like
blah blah
to
blah. You were
interview
like, "Hey,
you.
let's just
Yeah,
chat." I
yeah.
was like, "Great, I
Because
love
that's really
chatting."
what it is. Because that's really what it is. Like if usually if I send an
Yeah,
email, I'll say interview for the channel and the podcast, but it's
yeah,
really more of it's just a conversation. It's
100%.
like there's
Yeah,
no
best kind.
I write down things I want to talk about, but I usually
hmm
don't even look at the list because it just goes,
Yeah,
right?
it just flows on its own.
Just
Yeah,
becomes
absolutely.
an organic chat, an organic chat.
That's how you know you're good at your job is if you can just adjust on a dime. You're not tied to your list. Like
Yeah, you just
you know how
trust
to
it.
talk to people. You're very pleasant.
You just trust it. Well, likewise.
hmm Oh,
Very
well, thank
pleasant.
you. I'm
So
glad to hear it.
so similarly, we both have a lot of plates spinning. Um,
Yeah.
what are all the different things you do and are like currently like what are all the balls you're juggling currently?
That's a great. question, and I hope I don't forget any on the air. Um, okay, so Epic is constantly happening and evolving. That's mostly remote though. A lot of this is like remote work in some way. Like I said, I just released a bunch of music, which has been a very unexpected but exciting part of the journey, and now I can't get enough of it, and I probably will be doing that forever and ever. Um,
Hmm.
I am still like auditioning, working in Chicago, producing in Chicago, performing in Chicago. Um, I am on the producing team for a musical that's about to open on the West End in the fall,
Amazing.
and it's so exciting. It's an incredible. I'm a fan for. I always start with my producing projects as like I'm a huge fan first, and so then when I just like corner the people and convince them to let me help them raise money for it, which usually they're amenable to.
Yeah,
Um, but this one in particular is so special. It's got such an incredible message. It's such an incredible team. The composer and like one of the stars of it is just a force of nature that I'm so lucky to know. So that's happening. I teach voice, mostly to biddies because I don't have like your level of expertise, and
okay.
prowess. And so I mostly just work with kids who are trying to figure out, whether this is something they want to do, or they're trying to build musicality, or they're trying to, really find their authentic voice. Like that's a big thing of what I do with
Okay.
kids. But I love that. That's a great job. Um, I run a fund called Sisters First that focuses on, so this is kind of in the producing bag,
Sure.
but that's focused on um, raising money for, or like providing technology, resources, personnel, et cetera, to projects and creators who are traditionally underrepresented. Um, so that's really exciting, and even that has seen a plethora of changes and evolutions since the pandemic and everything. Um, so that's really exciting. This is where I start to get nervous because I'm like, I know I've forgotten something, but I
It's a
think
lot of
those are most
things.
of the main ones that I am. Yeah, right.
It's a lot
I
of
think
things.
that's most of the juggling I'm doing right now.
And are you auditioning for musical theater and straight theater?
Yes, yeah. I
Okay.
have an agency in Chicago who does it all, and they're incredible. And so they send anything that they think I'd be interested in or they think I'd be good for across my desk. And I usually say yes to everything because I there's a lot of really good art happening in Chicago.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, you do just have to audition a bunch, no matter
Absolutely.
how
Yeah,
good
it
you are.
is
Like the best actors, the best singers in the world, still get told no most of the time. You
most
know.
absolutely. It is 100% a numbers game. I tell that to everyone. I'm like, there could be something that you have an incredible audition for, and you put your best foot forward. It could be the best audition you've ever done, and the director could just have a different vision for that part. They might want someone who doesn't have a perfect voice. They might want someone
Yeah.
who, like has a little bit more rawness to them or something. Like
Hmm.
there's so many different reasons why casting teams make the decisions that they make. And so one of the big lessons, especially in the self-taping era of the pandemic, was like you just got to move on immediately after you send it in, no matter how much you want to be part of that thing.
Yep.
And you got to realize that like it's not about you, to be honest. Like it just
Right.
again, like you do your best work, and if they think you're good for that collaboration, great. And if not, then it has nothing to do with you. And that's
Yep.
actually a really comforting thought. So just like internalize
Like,
that,
oh,
everyone. We're gonna be
yeah,
okay.
we're gonna be okay. Keep auditioning. Keep
Yeah,
going.
exactly. Keep going. Keep going.
How about film? Do you audition for film at all?
I do. Oh, yep. That is definitely one I forgot. Yes, I do quite a bit of film in the city. Um, I was lucky actually. I did a ton of film work last summer. It lined up where all of a sudden a bunch of auditions in a row worked out, and then I was in like I think it was something crazy, like five short films and then one feature last summer, and like all of them
Wow.
filmed over the summer. So
Oh my
I was pretty
gosh.
constantly working on that. Yeah, it was awesome though. It was so wacky because they were all so radically different, but it was so fun. And that really like I got the bug the bug bit me for that too, because it was just it's such a different experience than stage acting, and I
Yeah.
loved every second of it. Um, and then while I was working on a couple of those, actually, I met a collaborator who I love working with more than anything else. Um, his name is Isaac White, and he then became the co-creator and director and producer of my first music video, which is now doing like the film festival circuit and stuff like that. So
Oh,
it's awesome,
wow.
and it's awesome to be in Chicago because like there's so many incredible talented people who live here, and their openness to collaboration is unprecedented. I have not found another city where the emphasis on collaboration is as strong as it is here. So I was really, because he was just kind of like, I did him a favor and I was in one of his short films that was very, very low budget. And then I just like pitched I was like, hey, I love your style. I think you'd be perfect for this. Is there any chance you have time slash are interested in working on this with me? Because I've never produced a
Yeah.
music video before. I've never produced a film before. And he's like, 100%. I love the song. I'm so in. And I was like, great. Oh my gosh.
Sort of segue. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
huge difference between the opera world and the theater world. Is
Hmm.
that opera? I mean, so right now I'm working with Arizona Opera, which is like a big regional company, but
Yeah.
it's not like the Met or Lyric Opera of
Oh my God.
Chicago.
Yeah,
It's not
no.
that it's not that big. So those shows they'll have a performance and then like a few days in between before the next
Yep.
performance, right? Which
Hmm.
is so important to give the operatic singing enough time to like recoup. But then musical
Absolutely.
theater,
Yeah.
people are doing, full shows every day, 2 shows a day, which is just completely insane to me. Like I cannot imagine performing
Yeah.
a full show like multiple times a day for a whole week.
Yeah. And I think there's certainly something thrilling about that and like exciting about it. But I think part of the reason that I've started to take a step away from the theater world and towards things like music or things like kind of like multimedia collaborations and um, is because my body was having a really hard time keeping up, especially while it was recovering. And it made me think a lot about the way that the industry is structured and the way that it treats its actors sometimes. And I've worked with a lot of really generous, wonderful people in the theater industry, don't get me wrong, who are like actively seeking to fight this in their own companies. But I've also worked with a lot of places that treat you as replaceable. And
Yeah.
that is not that is something that I needed to take some time away from. So the nice thing about Epic is since it's all remote as of right now, I can still be like fully invested and fully involved in that. And then hopefully I will be in a place where I'm sure I will be like where if it does find a home as a stage show, then like I will be in a place where I could do that if asked. Because
Yeah.
I'm getting into more of like a routine with like dealing with this condition, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Performance
pretty crazy.
performance art's tough. I mean, it for
Yeah.
sure in the opera world, it's you can be one of the best young singers in the world and you're not
Hmm.
getting paid. You're getting
Oh
paid
yeah.
almost nothing. Then
Oh
if you
yeah.
can jump the gap, if you can jump the gap to being like a guest artist performing, as a principal at some of these big houses,
Hmm.
you start making a lot of money. But
Oh yeah.
it goes from almost nothing to like a good amount,
Yeah. I mean,
which is
it's the
wild.
same thing. Yeah, the arts are just so underfunded, and it makes me so sad because I really do believe like I don't think a single person in the arts got into, well, I'm not a single person, but like I think very, 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 very few, if any, people get into the arts because they are interested in hurting other human beings. Um at all.
Right,
Like
right.
it's not on
Yeah.
people's bingo card most of the time. And but it is such a underfunded industry and there's so much need that runs through it. It's that is what creates an environment in which things like that can happen, even accidentally, I think. And it's really it makes
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I'm just trying to rage against as a producer is like how do we create a new structure of this industry that even when things get really stressful, even when things get really hard, you're not stepping on other people in order to get yourself
Yeah.
through it, like how do we
Yeah.
stop cutting those corners? And the answer, unfortunately, is like everyone needs more funding, everyone needs more resources, everyone needs more time, and we're
Yeah.
not getting it.
No, I mean
So
that's really it. I understand it, but from the opera company's perspective, I mean, opera
mhm.
productions are huge. They're
Oh my
huge,
God.
like massive.
Brilliant, wonderful spectacles. Yes,
Yeah, just
absolutely.
an insane amount of production, and yeah, the funding's not there. It's not there in
Hmm.
the state. And we have there's a the opera world wouldn't exist without donors, and
Yeah,
there are so many amazing, wonderful donors that are keeping the art alive in this country.
yeah.
In Europe, it's funded, by the state. Like there's state funded opera houses. Not the case
I
here.
know.
So
Why do
shout
you
out to
think
all.
I'm helping produce a,
Yeah.
a show in London? It's because it's like, thank goodness, it's so much
Yeah.
easier to put up a show there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, man, I understand why. I mean, you do have to run it partially as a business, even though it's art. Like you have to keep the lights on,
Oh yeah,
and part of that is
absolutely.
like paying people a little less when you can pay them a little less for the show to go
Yeah,
on. So like I get it from the
absolutely.
business side, but it's really tough from, pretty much every other angle.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
I am with you there.
Um, so speaking of all these things you do, all these different
Yeah,
plates you're spinning, I love to I love to talk to creatives who are doing a lot about work-life balance. I think the audience always appreciates hearing how people do it and what it looks
yeah.
like, or if the courage, what is work-life balance? Like, so
I,
I mean, what is your, I usually frame this kind of in like and it changes so much for creative people. So don't feel
hmm.
pressure to be like, this is
Oh,
exactly how it goes.
totally.
But
Yeah.
like a week in your life, kind
A
of, if it
week.
like just kind of an
I love
average
it.
week, it's like you're working on this, you're working on this. I take Friday nights off to watch a movie and relax. Like, what does it
Uh-huh.
kind of look like? And how do you structure your relaxation versus work?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great question. And it's so important. I so agree. I will be totally transparent. I am still very much like working on my work-life balance because I tend to veer towards being a total workaholic.
Yeah.
And I talk to especially like young creatives who are just getting out of school all the time about this as like when you love what you do, it is so easy to become a workaholic. Like, I think we think of the typical idea of a workaholic in your brain is someone who, works on Wall Street and works 90 hours a week somehow and like is just like, throwing back Red Bulls to stay awake through the night and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And there's a very specific idea of how that looks. You don't necessarily think of, at least first, the artist who is really trying to crack a song. And so they're up until 3 a.m. trying to do it. But then they have to get up the next morning for a 9 o'clock call, and so they get very little sleep and then have to like function through their entire day, a day that is usually spent completely on your feet, using your body if you're a performer.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
it is so important to set clear boundaries for yourself. And that's like what I'm really working on in therapy and like just kind of in my life, my day-to-day life as like you can't stay up until 3 a.m. Make like as much as you want to do the song, like the song will be there tomorrow and the ideas will be there tomorrow. And if you really like are worried about losing something, then don't keep your phone next to your bed. Keep a notebook next to your bed where you can write that down and you're not getting like the sunlight and the whatever.
Hmm.
And I've actually even gotten really good at writing somewhat legibly in the dark because like I'm not at this point, like I know if I turn my light, I'm a very sensitive sleeper. If I turn my light on, then like I'm going to be up for another hour. That's just the way it goes with
Sure.
me. Um so I think it is a constantly evolving journey, especially when you're an artist because your life changes so rapidly. Like your day-to-day life could look completely different today than it does 3 months from now, and no other industry has to deal with that on that
Hmm.
level and to that intensity. Like where I mean, when I took this job that I was out of state for when I got my medical diagnosis, I didn't know that I was good. I had auditioned for it like 6 or 7 months prior. I'd gotten released, or at least never heard from them. And then all of a sudden, like 3 weeks before I was supposed to leave, move out of state to another state, to another completely different part of the US, I heard back from them about like, oh, hey, we'd like you to put yourself on tape again. And so then I put myself on tape again. And then another week passed. Now it's 2 weeks before I'm supposed to leave. And they're like, okay, we'd love to have you do this callback material. And so like it got to be like about a week and a half before I was supposed to be there for my first rehearsal that all of a sudden I was hearing like, you got the part, good luck, figure it out. And so like I think the biggest balance that I've had to learn how to and I'm still learning how to master is that of staying flexible enough to be able to adjust to the opportunities that come your way without it like literally tearing down your entire life every single time something changes. Because I have friends who are like, I love my 5-year plan, I live by my 10-year plan or whatever, and I was like, wow, that'd be crazy. Imagine that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, there needs to be some level of flexibility because there is a level of spontaneity that comes with being an artist. But I've also gone completely the wrong direction of the pendulum not swimming.
Swinging.
I want to swim right now, but swinging the other way. And and having, I'm like, well, who needs a plan ever? I'll just go with the flow. I'll, live in my car. I'll like hop from thing to thing. And like, that doesn't work either. So it's this very delicate balance
Yeah.
that you need to find in the middle. And it's one that that's like one of my main things that I'm working on these last couple of years. So,
It's tough.
but yeah, it is
Yeah.
next to impossible, some would say. And like, it's just, and again, there's not going to be like one solution that works. It does, I think, change form no matter depending on the situation, which is part of the flexibility part. So
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Being able to
But
say no, Nate, being able to say no to opportunities is a huge skill to develop.
Massive.
If you're an artist that people want to be collaborating with, which if is all going well, you're going to be getting offers all the time, like this
Yeah.
podcast or like whatever production's coming up or an audition here, an
Mm-hmm.
audition there. It's like there are a lot of things that you have to just be like, you have to have a somewhat clear priority list as far as where you want to be spending your time.
Absolutely. And not only that, but like, even if you're not someone who books a ton or you're not working as much as you think you should be, like the art of saying no is so important because that's how you prevent yourself from getting into dangerous situations. Like I think as artists, a lot of times, especially in the theater world, I don't know if it's the same in your spheres, but like especially in the theater world, we're kind of trained to always say yes, no matter what's happening. Just be smile and be easy to work with, and make them want to bring you back because they have the power and you don't. Is kind of the subliminal narrative that I think we're fed.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that a result of that underfunded, under-resourced industry that kind of treats people as disposable, unfortunately, a lot of the times. And so you saying no to something because it doesn't feel right, saying no to something because you don't believe in what you're saying no to like all of that that is how you take your power back, and that's how you protect yourself. And so like, and it's really, really hard. It's really hard, especially when that $750 stipend for a 5-month contract, which is a thing that happens occasionally around here. When that $750 in your bank account can make the difference of like, am I going to be able to pay my rent this month or not? Like sometimes you're in a very difficult position in that sense. But I always say that there's always another means of getting that $750 if you feel unsafe taking it. And so I think that's like, yes, the art of saying no as an artist who has like a million offers flowing their way. Absolutely. I mean, like there's such beauty in that. Is like, that's kind of like an arrival moment in your career when you get to say no to things that like you want to prioritize other things over that thing.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of, especially really like young people who they don't have a ton of offers coming their way, but something comes across their desk. Like for example, for young women, a lot of times it's like, hey, you would get to work with this big TV network on this show, but it requires topless nudity. And like, that's a non-negotiable for us. And you're like, why is it non-negotiable? Like, why can't we have a conversation about that? Or like, can you explain to me, can you have a writer or producer or someone explain to me why that's essential to the storytelling? Like I have my agents have gotten so not mad at me, but they always have this moment of like, well, why are you saying no to this? And I'm like, well, because unless you can get someone on the phone, which I'm open to talk me through why you want me naked for some reason forever on the internet. Um, I don't know that that's something I'm comfortable or interested in. And like, luckily, as soon as I give them that, my agency is very like, absolutely, we support you. I think that's the right choice for you. You know what's best for
Good.
your career, et
Good.
cetera, which is awesome. But I know a lot of other
Yeah.
agencies, a lot of other managers, representation, like networks, companies that do not give that same thing. So anytime I come across an artist who's struggling with something like that, I try and give them the advice of like, no, you're the only one, even if you have great representation or a great team, or even if you have creators that are really willing to work with you, you are the only one who's going to be able to know what's best for yourself and protect yourself 100% of the time. So,
Yeah.
like, you got
Yeah.
to develop that first.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I got us very off topic. Weeks now that we're sad a little bit. My weekly existence is so usually I have one day and it's in flux because children's schedules change even more than mine, which is fascinating to me.
Mm.
But usually I would say on like Mondays or Thursdays I teach for a couple hours during the day. So let's say on Monday I have 4 hours of teaching. And that's a combination of over Zoom. I only have one student that I'm seeing in person right now, and he's a star. So I would literally run across the edge of the earth for him. Um, but I do some teaching. Um, the time with which that happens varies. We're already off to a great start with like the
Yeah.
scheduling, as you can see. Um, I take producing calls every day. That usually starts, as early as 9 or 9:30. Nothing too insane. Occasionally, when I'm working with someone from LA, I do have to. It's really early for them, but no, sorry, New York, not LA. LA's the one that's behind us.
There we
You're
go.
on Pacific, right?
I'm Phoenix, so I'm in. This is an interesting,
Got it.
just fun fact, is I'm in
Yeah.
the mountain time zone range, but Arizona doesn't do daylight savings. So right now I'm with
Oh
California
my God.
and Pacific, but like whenever they switch, then I'll be with Colorado and you know,
Oh my God. Arizona sounds like the place to be then, because other than that being like a little confusing,
it's the
what is
best.
let's
I
talk about
love
it.
this.
Twilight savings?
I love this state. It's so cool
Yeah,
and so
that's
versatile. Like
incredible.
what? Yeah. Anyway,
Oh,
that's a
it's
whole
such
other
an
can of worms.
energetically rich place, gorgeous natural place. Like, yeah, I've only been to Arizona a couple times, but I love it every time I've been there.
Yeah,
Um,
insanely diverse, insanely diverse. Like
yes.
Phoenix is,
Oh my
I think
God.
I'm in the third hottest city in the world. But if you drive
Hmm.
an hour and a half north, it's like incredible snowboarding and skiing in the winter.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Like that close.
It's hmm the
Wild.
hikes are amazing. The wildlife is really fascinating down there. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, big fan. Love it, love it, love it. And love that they were just kind of like, you daylight savings time, because that's what we're all
Yeah.
thinking. No one's had the courage other than Arizona to do it though. um, yeah, so then I take producing calls every day as early as usually about 9. I don't tend to go before then. There's been a couple occasions with New York people where I have, but um, and then I usually am wrapped up with those about 4 p.m. Unless again I'm working with someone. This is where the LA comes in, like someone on Pacific time. Occasionally I'll go as late as 7:30 with that, just like because of their workday schedule. Um, and then any time that's not taken up by calls, um, I try to get at least 12, between like 8 and 12 hours of writing in a week for music, just because like and a lot of times that's like scattered. Like I consider if I take the dog out for a walk and I'm trying to work through a couple lines in my head, like I still consider that time. Um,
Yeah.
but between 8 and 12 hours of writing a week, and occasionally that will be like truncated into a 4 or 5 hour session with my producer who lives in Chicago now. And so like I'll go, like that's what I'm doing later today. I have to head down there and we're going to do a writing session until like 5. Um, so that's been a big piece. And then like promoting the music that is out because we're like a three-person team right now, and I do a lot of my own marketing and promotion
Hmm.
myself,
Yep,
as
same.
is the
Same
way
here.
with the indie artist. Oh yeah, I know you know. I know you know what's up. TikTok is so funny. So like I do a lot of that's usually uh, these days that's like majority of my day. I do like between 3 and 5 hours of that a day, and even if it's just like stuff like this, like like I'll
Yeah.
take interviews or I'll connect with new collaborators or I'll create content for promotion and things like that. And so I do a lot of that. Um, and then scattered throughout this is one of my like biggest self-care things, and it's really not even for myself, is I love walking my dog. Like that's one of my favorite things to do. And so I try and do every time I take her out, I try and do between 20 and 30 minutes a walk. And that's like also a good breather time where if I've been working consistently, I usually try and work in like 3 hour increments, 2 to 3 hours, and then take a walk with the dog, and then do that, and then take a walk with the dog. Um, I also do a lot of, and this is where it starts to get like my therapist raises an eyebrow at this a lot. I do a lot of like meditation in the car. Like I'll be driving, and there's something about having to focus on the road that makes me be very present right away. And so like I'll put a guided meditation on instead of like an audiobook or instead of music, and I'll do a meditation that way. And she's kind of like, well, but then are you really like sitting at the time, or is it just convenient to do it in the midst of your schedule? I'm like, Claire, don't come for me like that.
Well,
Um,
true. I think true mindfulness is irrespective of the environment. If you're
yeah,
really practicing mindfulness, you can do it anywhere. It's all about being
exactly. And like
present.
I'm
Yeah.
like, at first, I really did have to examine whether that was something that was healthy or not. And what I realized is like I'm never more present than when I'm in the car because I'm really,
Yeah.
again, you're focused on like what's immediately happening around you,
Hmm.
and not necessarily. I find it very hard to multitask in the car, um, unless I have something like a call to focus on. But otherwise, like
Yeah.
I'm not sitting there and trying to like figure out a song because I'll miss a light or I'll do something
Yeah.
horrible and dangerous. Like I'm just
Yeah.
not particularly adept at that, and so. Um, it is a really good time for mindfulness because I'm already very like tuned in to like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm watching the lights, I'm
Yeah.
watching these pedestrians, I'm watching this biker that is going so slow for no reason. Like
Right.
I'm right there. Um, and then in ter- in terms of like when I end my workday, that's where we run into a little bit of trouble, and that's where I'm still trying to grow as a human. Is like because again it's so in flux as to when things end, and then if I'm rehearsing then forget about it, I'm not home until 11
Mhm.
um or midnight sometimes. And so like I try and wrap things up. I have a very specific bedtime routine. Like that's like kind of what I anchor myself to, is I shower every night. I do my skincare, and I do like my kind of winding down routine, and then I go to bed. If I need to do some extra writing or reading or whatever, like I do that then, and then I go to bed. But like it's always in that order, and it always
Hmm.
kind of
Hmm.
lets my body know that it's time to wind down.
Sure.
I just need to get more consistent about when I start it.
Which is tough.
But
Which is
yeah,
tough, given the work.
that felt like a really bad answer to your question.
No,
Which
everyone has a different system. Who's
yeah,
doing, like you said, it's not like I have work from 9 to 5 and then I,
yeah,
do this and then, bedtime's the same every night. It's different.
mm-hmm,
It changes a lot
yeah. You've
for
got
for us.
yeah.
Speaking of that, I'm gonna hit you with one more thing. Hopefully
Please,
we can wrap in the next 5 or 6 minutes. We're
sweet.
we're we're we're
No,
coming
yeah,
up
we're
on
good.
we're coming up on the time, but I mean, you can stay here forever if you want, but I know you have things to do. I've got nothing till like 2 hours
Oh
later.
shoot, I do have to hold on, let me text because I did set another call, and I'm just gonna let him know that I'm running a little bit behind. I let him know that we were probably gonna run over because I I'll be honest, Peter, you're especially good at your job, but I always run over with these things. Um,
Yeah, I mean, two people that are good at chatting. you can really let the ball roll for a while. I mean,
I know,
know,
and what a beautiful thing to
yeah.
be able to
And there are
do.
there are a million directions we could go. We could talk for 6 hours, I'm convinced.
Oh, and no doubt we will, because this is far from the last conversation we will have, I'm
Most
sure.
definitely.
Not necessarily on the air, but I'm very
Yeah.
excited to just like keep hearing about you. I want to interview you next time. How about that? I don't
You
have
gotta
a
start
podcast or
you gotta
anything. I
start a
just want to know.
podcast. That's your 19th thing. You gotta get going.
Perfect. Oh my gosh.
All right. So last thing, um,
Yeah.
we talked about like it's impossible to have like a clear 5, 10 year plan, whatever,
Hmm.
for people in our work. But I think it's incredibly important to have a vision, a clear
Yeah.
a clear vision for where you want to take your work and your art. So I'm wondering what that looks like for you.
Oh, you're speaking my language. I love me a goal. I love a
Oh yeah,
vision.
you have to have it.
Um, Yeah, I'm learning to get more specific with it because a lot of times I'll just sit here and I'll be like, if I get to, you know, perform my song for a crowd of people, however big, that knows the words and can sing it back to me. That would be like that's one of my goals right now. Do I know when that's going to happen? No. Do I know like what that's going to look like? Absolutely not. But I'm trying to like so I think there's certain things that it's good to keep them kind of ephemeral like that. But I think there's certain things that like it's good to have
Yeah.
like I want to do this by this time.
Hmm.
And certainly like I love doing it on a yearly basis. I love saying like I would love to be in this place by next year. Or like if I'm not feeling that I've made progress in this way, and that can be flexible too, but by next year I might reprioritize. Like it's I think it's good to have checkpoints to kind of like track your progress and
Hmm.
hold yourself accountable, which is
Yep.
really important in our industry. Um, so I would say in the next year, I want to do the first like live performance of just my music. That's a big goal of mine right now. I've been doing a lot of planning for that. Um, I want to, oh my God, because this has been changing so much recently. Because like all of my goals were theater based for a really long time, and now
Right.
that's kind of that's shifting a little bit. Um, I would love to work with one of the like another major equity house in the next year. I think that would be really wonderful, and that could be preferably in Chicago, but like in out of state is also negotiable.
Mm.
Um, I want to write and produce my next music video, which I'm in the pro that's who I gotta chat with next is my co-collaborator on that. I want to see Epic to I want to like get to celebrate the upcoming sagas in Epic. That's going to be a really really great time. I want to focus on my health. That's been a really big focus recently, and like make sure that everything is feeling good and appropriate and doable there. Um, and I would love to do more film work this next year. Like that's like a big goal of mine is like I really want more film work. Like I want to do more screen stuff, even if
Sure.
that means like if I'm not booking, then to get into like a class or something like that where I'm getting to do that on a more regular basis. Those are the big ones right now. And then there's just like human stuff. And human stuff is like I want to be able to structure like I want to get better about holding myself to a more regular schedule. Like that's a big goal of mine on the personal level right now. I want oh God, and then I forgot I want to put my all for like the entire fall into putting this show up in I'm lucky because like there's such an incredible team working on that like I really only have to worry about when they call me and tell me that they need something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as of right now it's been pretty quiet because a lot of they're not there yet, but once they're there I think there will be a lot of that. But I'm really over the moon excited to share that show with the world on a larger scale because it is something that everyone can relate to and everyone will pull something from. It's called Super You the musical if anyone wants to look it up.
Good for you.
It's incredible. incredible. Like it's about empowerment and finding yourself, and how complex the journey of finding your voice can be.
Mm.
And it's just one of my favorite things I've seen in a long time. So I'm really excited for that one to get shared with the world, and I'm like fully
Awesome.
chomping at the bit, like, to support that in any way I can. So
Awesome.
that's a very exciting goal that I'm excited to meet, is like to get to see it
Yeah.
on the West
Incredible.
End.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So,
And so yeah, then yeah, go ahead. Mhm.
no, any final words to our wonderful listeners out there?
Thank you so much for listening to me ramble. And yeah, I'm so excited that I got to talk to you and meet with
Likewise.
you. And like, this has just been such a joy.
Yeah.
And um, it just goes to show, like, message me on Instagram. I usually respond and would love to talk to you. So,
Yeah, we
um,
will definitely be in touch about perhaps a
yeah.
great many things going forward.
Oh, I certainly hope so. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're amazing. Thank you so much. What a wonderful show, and peace and love to all of you out there.
Likewise. Likewise. We'll be in touch and I'll keep you posted on the release for this and all that. Probably about a month from
Great.
now. Probably about a month from now.
Awesome. Oh my God, how
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yay. You're
All right.
on it. Geez, that's a, I know, like, editing takes a really long time, so that's awesome.
Yeah. Well,
Congratulations on being good at your job.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. No, really, really great to talk to you. Thanks for coming on.
You
And we'll be in
too.
touch and have a wonderful day.
You too, Peter. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much again. This is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. Pleasure to meet you.
You too. I hope you guys thoroughly enjoyed that full conversation with Teagan. If you did, be sure to check out this interview with this amazing singer as well. Go on, click it. I know you want to.